Hey folks, welcome to Free Press Sports with Carlos and Shawn. Happy holidays, Carlos. It's good to see you. Merry Christmas, whatever it is you celebrate. I hope you had a great one. I know the Lions had a great holiday. The Pistons, not so much. We're going to talk about both today. I think we should start with the Lions, though, because it's the season of goodwill, right? Jolly and mirth and all that. And we'll set all that other unpleasantness aside for a little bit and get into the Lions and how Dan Campbell apparently needs a lifetime contract, which you wrote about. Yeah. How many wins away is he from taking over this town? I mean, if he hasn't already.
One win on whatever January 14th, whenever the playoff is. That's how many wins he's away.
You think?
He's already, I mean, I was thinking about this, we've all been thinking, Dan Campbell lives in our head rent free. And I was just thinking like this, what would it take for people to fall out of love with Dan Campbell and this whole town? And, it would take so much. I mean, even next year, a whole collapse wouldn't do it. 0-16 or 0-17 wouldn't do it. Oh, it's a rebuild after they lost Ben Johnson and this and that. It would take so much just because there's just something, and we've written a lot about him, obviously a ton about Dan Campbell, but it's beyond just the winning. It's the everything about him, the way he carries himself, the way he connects with everybody, up and down the spectrum of leading a team, So people just like him. They like the idea of him, but he's really connected in a way that a few other people, and I don't want to go on to a long tangent because we got to get on other stuff, but we'll get back to that. But he's connected in a different way. That someone asked about Jim Caldwell, and he had a winning record, and it was like Caldwell just it was a different vibe. We can get into that later if we want, but Campbell he hasn't made a bad turn. He has not made when he's made a wrong move. The brilliance of Dan Campbell is he recognizes it, he owns it, and he gets past it. It's not, these other things, firing Don Muehlbach or cutting him on his birthday would have been the Titanic hitting the iceberg for a lot of other coaches. No, called himself an idiot or a jerk and, whatever, and moved right on. And I was like, oh man, he just won everybody over. The one of the single best, smartest PR moves you could ever make. And in fact, I don't know this for sure, but I don't know this at all, but in a way, it would have been, I don't think he did it, but it would have been genius. You got to cut a longtime veteran. When do you cut him? Cut him on the worst day possible and then own it. I'm a jerk. And then put him on the staff anyway. That is like the chess move to beat all chess moves. I don't think he planned it, but it worked out so perfectly for him. So one of the many reasons that he owns this town and will own this town for years to come.
It worked out because he was just being himself, which is the whole key to this. It's interesting you mentioned Jim Caldwell. He came up at my family holiday gathering. Jim Caldwell came up in part because it's funny. Speaking of Dan Campbell, he came up too, and so it's a room full of Lions fans. Most not lifetime Michigan people, not all of them, but most of them. And they were going around talking about the team and their favorite player, and it's funny. At some point, somebody said, "Who's your favorite player?" Dan Campbell, right? The coach is their favorite player, and he was. Yeah. It's funny, there are plenty of people that like Laporta or Gibbs, or there's some love for the offensive linemen, especially Sewell and Ragnow. Amon-Ra St. Brown, the way Melanfano was playing right now, his name came up a couple times. So all these players, but the consensus, Carlos, was no, they're great. We love these guys, but no, it's Dan Campbell. Yeah, it's really something. My niece, who's not a football person at all, said that she, her girlfriends even on a text thread or just when they're talking about this guy's name comes up. It's really something, and they're not particularly football players. I mean, football people. I had one of my sons said to me during this talk, he said, I don't know about football a whole lot. I don't know about anything, but he's the one guy in my lifetime that I would run through a wall for. And that's kind of a cliche, but he inspires that. And it's because he's himself. And it's really, really something. If he wins the Super Bowl, then, look out, right?
The problem with being yourself is it's the biggest cliche in the NFL about coaching, especially. So the NFL publishes these things, little like kind of a preview for the season. And they do questionnaires with first time coaches, like if you've taken over a team or whatever, you're a first time coach in the NFL. And it's just a Q&A thing. And they just, it's a form. They just fill it out. And a lot of it is one of the standard questions is, what's the best advice you've ever gotten? And they almost all without fail say, always be yourself. Well, what if you're a jerk? Yeah, that doesn't work. So being yourself, I mean, I think this is Dan Campbell, but he also knows when to lean into the best parts of himself, and I think the way he carries himself overall is natural, but he also knows how to play the room. He knows how not to get angry about certain things. He wasn't happy with a question I asked him last week about season tickets, but he didn't. Another coach might have really lost it. It was clear he didn't like the question, but he didn't make it personal. He didn't attack me. He didn't, or anybody in the media. When he hasn't liked a question, he doesn't. He knows how to sidestep it. He knows how to diffuse a touchy situation, and there's a lot of really careful thought that goes into that goes beyond just being yourself and being a dude. There's so many layers to Dan Campbell. Someone could easily write a book about him, but yeah, he is the enduring part of this team that gives you the most face, because players come and go, right? I mean, they lost, Jamal Williams was a really popular, successful running back last year, but people weren't that worried about it when they lost him and when they traded DeAndre Swift. They're like, no, we have confidence in obviously Brad Holmes to maybe pick the right guys, but Dan Campbell to make sure they're used the right way. So, and they lost a running backs coach too, Deuce Staley. So they lost that whole unit basically and didn't skip a beat, and they're even better than they were last year. So this is the quality of the head coach, of the confidence, how he carries himself, how he guides his team, how he keeps moving forward and succeeding. It's not always going to be this way. They're not going to have a high pick next year, and things are going to change. He's probably going to lose Ben Johnson. So things will change. But I think that's the thing, is the coach endures. Look at Bill Belichick, right? And I think this is the time for the Lions. The time that you've seen these other, the mainstays, the Andy Reids, the John Harbaughs, back to the Vince Lombardis and the Tom Landrys and Sean McVay, like these, this is the guy. The Lions finally have their Lombardi, their guy that's going to be here for a long time, that there's a lot of confidence that he's winning, like they haven't had that. I mean, Wayne Fonts and, you had to go back to like Buddy Parker and George Wilson in the 50s before that. Joe Schmidt did okay, but nothing like, like what any other team has had, their Lombardi. Finally, it looks like the Lions may have their Lombardi.
Yeah, being yourself to me is just being authentic. When you're talking to somebody generally and they're full of it, and he's not. And I think, it's funny, this came up too on Christmas Day in the conversation, just this idea that he's going to tell you what he thinks. And that's what people mean when they say, are you being authentic? His players know where he stands and know what he thinks, good or bad. And that's, that's really something. Caldwell's name came up because the group was kind of talking about players, coaches, and his guys liked him too. Caldwell absolutely had the locker room, and they played for him. It was different though. He didn't connect with, for various reasons. They didn't quite win. They didn't win like this, for one, but he didn't connect with the public in the same way that Campbell does. And that's a difference. But it's just this idea of, are you saying what you think? And that's not easy to do. I mean, it's really not. For so many of us, it's not easy to say what you think. And he does. And even with us, he does. He might have to couch it a little bit here and there. Maybe he's not going to cuss, right? You can't get up in front of the microphone. Even that question you asked him, I didn't think he disliked it so much as he was like, oh, come on, man. What do I have to do with it? I'm paraphrasing here, but he's like, oh, man, I don't have anything to do with that. You're putting me in a tough spot. I can't. But he wasn't mad. He didn't come across as mad at all. He was just more, oh, dude, I can't answer that, but here's what I got. And that's how he is. It wasn't contemptuous at all, not
right.
A hint of it.
He didn't like it, and I can tell you why he didn't like it, because he had a good idea that it was coming. And one of the little chess matches, this is a little inside baseball if anybody cares, but one of the things the Lions do is they stream their their press conferences with their coaches, and specifically, obviously, Campbell. He knows that a lot of fans watch this. And when he said my name at the top, he knows that if he says my name, people are going to know who asked that question and they're going to come after me. So it's a little bit of a pushback that way. It's smart, but that's an indication he didn't like the question. So just to be fair, everybody knows Carlos asked the question. So there's no confusion about it. And a lot of people did come after me and they were unhappy and whatever, which is okay. They can have their opinion about it. I try to explain how this works and whatever. It's a lot of inside baseball journalism stuff. And I don't know how many people care about that, but he did not like the question. I will guarantee you he didn't. But that's completely okay too. You have the right to not like a question. It's how you handle it. And as we know, Caldwell got very personal with people when he didn't like questions, when his relationship started failing in the media. He tried to do some stuff, and I give him a lot of credit. And I like Jim Caldwell. People ask,
I did too.
There was a little undercurrent in the media that we didn't like him because he's a black coach and most of the media is not black. And it was like, no, I liked Caldwell. We used to talk about, I wrote about this. We talked about books, and we're kind of old souls. We both would watch Charlie Rose and things and talk about World War II and different books and things. And I really appreciated how smart he was and how well-rounded and everything. But he struggled with respect and not feeling as though he had enough of it, and
maybe for good reason, by the way, right?
For good reason, but he kind of he had to understand he was not a great game manager at all. That was one of his biggest failings in the real way, in a very real way. And he didn't like being questioned about it. He didn't like, and that's what every coach, it doesn't matter who you are, you're going to get questioned about why did you go for it on 4th and 1, whatever. And he took exception to that. He didn't like it. And he had this kind of grandfatherly vibe about himself that just like, I'm kind of, the elder statesman or whatever. He didn't like when that was challenged. He didn't like, I remember one of the things he didn't like when we first started shooting video on our phones, and that people would hold their phones up, and he's like, you guys look like you're in the witness protection program and put your phones down and this and that. And, like he, not in a mean way, but little things like that, like something that Campbell would never, it's a speed bump trap that would never stop Campbell. He wouldn't care. I'm sure there's things he doesn't like. The way people sit and slump in their chairs, the way they hold their cameras, the way they ask questions. Never. Every coach has their thing. Patricia used to not like that we didn't say, good morning and, loud enough and whatever. I'm sure Campbell, he's a human. He's got his own preferences, but he doesn't communicate that. He tamps that down, and he's smart to do that. And don't let the little things get to you. And it's worked really well for him. He's really gotten the benefit of the doubt for a lot of losing the first year and a half in the media or in his career, but he got the benefit of the doubt from the media because he knew how to.
The local media, not the national media, was poked at him for a while, especially with that losing, right? The kneecap.
Yeah, but the national media doesn't matter. It's the local media that matters. We're the ones who criticize him on a day-to-day or praise him on a database. He's by the way, the local media, that's who Sheila Hamp reads, by the way. She doesn't read Mike Garofalo, whoever, she doesn't care about those people.
She might read both. And I'm going to push back a little bit on the fact that he mentioned Carlos. He's mentioned plenty of reporters' names in news conferences. To me, the secret to him is that he doesn't, it's not that he's indifferent. I don't think he cared that much about that question. I really don't. As a human being, when you don't like something, it's really, really hard to hide it. And he may do that from time to time. But again, he was just honest about it. And I just don't think it mattered to him that much, and maybe he thought about it before going in. I think that's part of his secret. He doesn't let things get to him. And so therefore it's easy not to get irritated or sound tense or whatever, like Caldwell did, like so many coaches do. I'm trying to think of a single instance where he's sounded like that. And you're right. He did a lot of losing. Can you remember a single time? I
not
can't.
One time. Not one time where
once.
He's been angry or pushed
not
back.
Once. Not once. And to me, that's just who he is. It's how he sees things. It's how comfortable he is with himself. And it's a great trait. It's really something to admire. It's not easy to say what you think and sort of understand people and be okay with who you are. It's part of why he's different. I mean, he's not unique. There are other people like that, obviously, on this planet. And there are other coaches like that, but Even Izzo, as long as he's been doing it, he gets a question he doesn't like, he can't hide it. He can't because it's hard as a human being. It's really, really hard to take in that moment. It's really, really difficult not to react. Yeah. And that's why I don't think he really cared one way or the other about that question that much. He's just, when you're that,
I'll tell you after the break why he cared for sure. But yes, he cared, which is, there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with not liking. You're telling me he's never not liked a question ever in the 3 years? Of course he has.
I mean, maybe, but but it's not that big a deal. He doesn't take it personally. He's not going to worry about who's asking or whatever. He just not, you know what I mean? Maybe he doesn't like, but I think he thinks more about what his answer is going to be and his responsibility to his players and to the owner and the front office and the organization and the fans. And that's what I think he thinks about more is how.
Absolutely. He thinks about how does the number one, the North Star for him is what Sheila's watching this. How does this reflect on her? How do I represent
and the players?
Her? And that's no, not the players. The Sheila. It's that. It's my boss. How do I make them look good?
No,
how do I not embarrass this team? How do I not? Because I guarantee you, when he came in here, who did he follow? Matt Patricia. What did Matt Patricia do? He jousted with reporters and he had tried to repair that relationship. It was doomed from the start for that reason. But he knew, I can't be doing this. I can't be angry. I can't have these bad moments where I, have to explain to somebody above me, why are you losing your cool? And the guy who's slumping in his chair, everybody's got a boss. Even the head,
it's not just coach. It's not just the owner. No, for sure. Absolutely.
It's not just the owner, but he's number one, the owner for sure. The height, absolutely. But you don't think he cares? You don't think he thinks she watches the things?
Of course he does. But I'm saying that coach.
You think he cares what Josh Pascal thinks?
Yeah, absolutely, I do. The whole locker room. You better believe the players watch that. Oh my goodness! I've been around coach or manager, or whatever sport, and they're very aware of how they sound to their players. If they're saying one thing to us and another thing in the locker room, players don't like it. They think they're full of crap. That absolutely matters in that relationship, and it has to do with how you perform. It's everything. It's just as important as the owner. I would say it's
just as important as the owner.
1A and 1B, that's fine. Yeah, because you got to win.
Wow. Who signs his check? Does Josh Pascal sign his check?
No, you know who? You know what signs his check? Winning. Having a team. Remember when Sheila Hamp took over, and I'll never forget it. It was the comment about how the team sounded immediately after Patricia was out. And the way they reacted to him. That's what she cared about in that moment. And we've written reports. We've all heard about how we don't need to go back and relitigate Bob Quinn and all that. But that absolutely mattered. And it mattered to her, not because of perception, although that may have been part of it, but because you can't win. You can't run an organization if you're we got to be careful in the words we use here, but if you can't connect with your players, the coaches use us all the time. Sometimes to reinforce, sometimes to light a fire. Oh my God, Jim Leland. Few people I've ever been around in professional sports were better at it than he was. He used to regularly use us to get messages out. I mean, it's smart. Why wouldn't you?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Obviously, there's a whole complexity to the press conference and all that. These people are like, oh, he won the press conference. Who cares about that? Whatever. There's a lot writing on the press conferences. Doesn't look like it, but there is. And you're absolutely right. Yeah, of course, the players, if he's saying one thing to them and then he's saying something to us or whatever, yeah, he comes off as, disingenuous or two-faced.
Right, Los? If he blames, sorry to interrupt. If he blames them, that's even worse. Right? If you got a coach that's taking out on his players. Oh,
absolutely. Absolutely. And I mean, most coaches don't. It's really rare, for a player, for a coach to do that. And, it's almost never a winning strategy to do that. It's rare, but yeah, even the little things. And I think that, to me, the misconception about Campbell, I think, is that, the Lions love to put out these post-game celebration videos in the locker room and he's yelling, let's go team. And fans think, oh, that's why they love him. Look at him. He's a tough dude and a coach and everything. That's not it. It's every coach does that after they win games. It's not unique. What's unique is the way he shoots them straight, tells them, if you do this, you'll play or whatever. If you don't do this, you're not going to play. And this is what we need out of you. And this is what we expect. And guys get benched and guys, whatever. He doesn't throw them under the bus, but he's honest with them. That's all they want. All the players want at the end of the day is tell me what I need to do to be successful and give me a fair shot at doing that, whether I'm a special teams player, whatever it is. They don't need to be coddled. They don't need to be whatever. They just need to be told. And then you need to keep up your end of the bargain as a coach. And yes, you do this, whatever you're going to do, you're going to play, you're going to get more snaps, you're going to get whatever. That's what they want. Right. And he's
great at that.
He's great at that. And I don't know if he's super unique in that, but not all coaches are like that.
They're not. Especially, it sounds simple, right? It sounds simple, but it's not. Or everybody would do it.
It's not. And these players have played a long time. They played for a lot of different coaches and coordinators and position coaches through high school and college, and now the pros, and especially the veterans. They've been on different teams. They've been treated differently, And so that's the thing. And Caldwell shared that. He was honest with the players too. He was a straight shooter. And the thing with Caldwell that endeared him to, not to go back too much, but just that he was coming off Schwartz, and Schwartz didn't really care about the players and didn't really tell them the truth all the time. And Caldwell was very much like, hey, this is how it is. This is what we're going to do. And he's also, hey, you guys have families, do your work, get out of here. I'm not going to make you live in the facility. You're grown-ups, whatever. If you do your work and you do it well, your time's your own. I'm not going to force you to put in FaceTime and whatever, suck up. But Campbell, definitely that's a huge thing for him, connecting with players. That's what it is. That's what they like about him. And he's winning. And he's also a likable guy. I mean, on top of that, he was a former player. He totally understands the players on a different level than some other coaches might, because he's been through it himself. That's another thing that I think they appreciate. He's speaking from experience. And the other part of it too is, he knows what to say. He knows who's listening, and he's never, what I think Campbell understands more than anything is anytime he might have a disagreement with the media or whatever, or, push back or whatever, that reflects poorly on the team and the owner, and that's what you can't have, is you just cannot have to, if you do something wrong, if he does something that embarrasses the team, he's got to explain it to, probably Chris Spielman, Rod Wood, Sheila Hamp, who knows, however, many other executives are there that might question, that's the problem, is there's a hierarchy here, and even though Campbell's going to have a lot more power, he's earning that power, where he's going to have to explain fewer of his decisions, and they're going to have to hey, this guy can do pretty much what he wants pretty soon. If he starts winning a lot, there's still going to be who have to answer to your owner. At the end of the day, don't make them look bad. So that's a lot of it. But his personality, I don't think he has that personality of taking things too hard or too personally, or, whatever it is. He's diffused things very well. It's what gives you hope and what makes him likable.
Yeah, there's subtle things too that are really, really important. For example, Sam Laporte is on a heater for a few weeks, and he gets asked about Laporte a lot. Just taking this name out of the hat, it could be Jahmyr Gibbs, it could be the Raza Melifano, whatever. At some point, it's not that he's going to diminish what that player is doing, but he will start to include other players. He will find a way to talk about a wider swath of the team. It's not that he's careful with his praise, but there's a balance in there, right? You don't want your players thinking your coach, the head coach is just talking about this one player all the time or whatever, or maybe they're getting a little bit too much. That's delicate, and he's just really good at that. And he's not the only one, obviously. There are other coaches that are good at that, but you can pick up on that. He's just a good quarterback is like that. Jared Goff's actually like that. You ask him about him, and he wants to talk about the running or the tight end block or the his guys up front, whatever. And any good leader, I guess that's why we say, because the quarterback has to meet with the media at the podium usually every week. I think every NFL team does it that way, most of them. So no, that's all good stuff. It's all smart. We need to take a break, Carlos, pay some bills. And we can come back and talk a little bit, if you want to talk a little bit about the actual game, Minnesota, the upcoming game against the Cowboys, maybe a little bit of the seeding. They actually control their destiny. we'll dig into that here in a second. Not for the 1 seed, but for the 2 seed. So let's come back and wrap this up on the other side, and then we'll get to the poor Pistons. All right, we'll be right back with more Free Press Sports with Carlos and Shawn. Welcome back to Free Press Sports with Carlos and Shawn. So, dude, may I call you dude? May I call you dude? Or you want me to call you brother? I like calling you brother. The Lions are tied for first place in the NFC. And it's late December. Is that? Can we just get our heads around? They're not likely to finish with the number 1 seed. San Francisco is. They've got to, they beat the Cowboys. Minnesota would be tough again back here. I mean, they have a shot at the number 2 seed, but just the fact that they're tied atop the NFC standings, and we're almost at New Year's. Is that? I mean, can you get your head around that? It's like a different reality.
When they were 1-6, I exactly predicted we'd be at this moment, Shawn. And you wait, midway through last year, you look, they're going to be there. They're going to be close to number 1. I can sense it with this team. No, this is insane. It's beyond this. I hope this has exercised a lot of demons and a lot of, Lions fans, because nobody saw this. I think what everybody thinks is going to happen is what's happened before is, okay, they squeak into the playoffs. They don't win the division, but they get the wild card or whatever. Maybe they win the division, but, whatever. They're not exactly, rolling through everybody. One of the better teams, one of the best teams. They're just making, it's a weaker division, and Cousins is hurt. Rodgers going, okay, they win the division with maybe, 10 wins, maybe 11, whatever at the end of the year. But yeah, that they're doing this is almost unfathomable. And one of the reasons I think is that the last time they did something like this, they had Barry Sanders. And they don't have a star like that on this team. There's nobody even close to that, or Calvin Johnson. It's just, they don't have that. And there's a lot of questions about some of the players that they do have. So I don't know where the credit goes exactly, probably to your coach of the millennium, Dan Campbell, or Brad Holmes or whatever. But it's strange that it's happening this way, and that the turnaround happened so fast in one season, essentially. It's just crazy. But yeah, I can't even, it's hard to imagine. Yes, unfathomable.
It really is. And we talked a lot. I think we talked about this last week. You're right, they don't have Barry Sanders. They don't, or Calvin Johnson or whatever. What they do have, and this is also, you mentioned how insane this is. It's crazy to think about this, because when you think about the group I'm about to mention, which I know you think about a well-run front office. You think about a well-run organization, because you can luck into, or be bad and get a high pick and get the right play. Barry Sanders or Calvin Johnson. You can find that guy once in a while, not very often, but that's not a team. Maybe for basketball, you get a guy like that, and you can do more things. But to go with 11 starters, 22 actually, both sides of the ball, as opposed to 5, there's a big difference. But what they do have is, when they're healthy, arguably the best offensive line of football, and that's crazy just to think about, because that means you've got to build and piece together. And admittedly, Brad Holmes, I'm sure, would be the first to tell you, he had a couple of those pieces when he took over. He and Campbell did, but they were smart to double down on that and then go that way. And that's why they are as good as they are without having, as you said, Barry Sanders or Calvin Johnson, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, although we should give some props to this collection of skill guys they have, because they're not bad. It's not like those guys are average players, right? Gibbs and St. Brown are pretty good.
Well, yeah, they've got very good players, but they don't have borderline Hall of Fame guys. That's what they don't have, or guys who are unquestionably the best at their position in the whole league. They don't even have.
No, they
Stafford.
don't.
I mean, I think right now, no, and right now, I think especially with the Rams kind of surging, as the thing. I think any Lions fan right now, in an honest moment, would say we'd rather have Matthew Stafford than Jared Goff right now. So they're doing things with what they have, with how they're built, with how Bob Quinn, drafted some good players like Ragnow and Jonah Jackson, and before him. Martin Mayhew, I think, got Taylor Decker. And, so, yeah, I mean, they inherited some of these players.
I think it was Quinn. I think it was Quinn.
Did Quinn get Decker too?
Yeah, I think
so. Bob Quinn's the key to this whole franchise, is what you're saying.
Well, no, it's crazy. No, Decker's really good, but he's not the best at his position. You could argue Sewell is the best right tackle in the league, and you could argue Ragnall's the best center. There's an argument to be made. I don't think it's the same with Decker. Jonah Jackson, as good as he is, I'm not sure. But anyway, yeah, you're right. Yeah. Who on the 22 is the best at their position? You couldn't even make an argument for Sewell at right tackle, maybe, and Ragnall at center. That's it. Nobody else is of the 22s, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Hutchinson leads the league in hurries and rushes and all that. Not sacks, but is he as naturally good as some of the other other edge rushers out there?
No,
he's not.
No, that's a brutal comparison. And when I'm talking about Barry and I'm talking about, Calvin and stuff, I'm talking about like unquestioningly the best, like on Hall of Fame track, not just, one All-Pro 2 years ago kind of a thing. And, the superstar kind of player. And that's what's hard about offensive linemen. And, can you even call an offensive lineman a superstar? It's kind of tough, but
no, you can't in terms of public knowledge, right? They're not a superstar.
Right. And that's okay. That's their job, to be a wall of massive humanity that keeps things from happening, whatever. And I know you love it. I don't, but.
Well, no. Think about real quickly, Carl. Think about what you just watched Sunday in Minneapolis. They went in against a team that had the best defense in the NFL since October and had been giving up 13 points a game on average. I'm sure you saw that in the last 8 or 9 games. One of the best run defenses in the NFL, or just a really, really good defense. One of the best 2-3 defenses in the league, and ran for 157 yards. I mean, that's and Gibbs is really good, and Montgomery is good, but that's not why they ran for 157 yards, right? I mean, Gibbs, who knows? I mean, he doesn't need much room when he goes, but it's because of those guys. I mean, That's just, it's because of those guys. That's it.
Yeah, for sure. And some creative play calling from Ben Johnson, and, a good pass game. They had to worry about Sam Laporta and Amon-Ra St. Brown and even Jamison Williams, so it all works together. It's not just, the run game is helped by the pass game and vice versa. So you can't just load the box and that's it and stop, if you're going to throw hitches and screens and whatever, you're going to beat, and Flores had a really good, I mentioned it in my little thing that I did, was one of the 3 questions was, Flores was blitzing down in the red zone, and what did Goff do? Is he beat it in the second time and hitting, throwing to Jamison Williams, who made yards on his own. It's like, okay, well, we can't just send 6 every time and try to stop them and keep from running or whatever. We're gonna try to stop you from running until you prove we can't. And they started proving they can't because they have a good receiving game and a good,
Well, they protect Goff too, right? They protect Goff once.
All that stuff. But when the blitz comes, you don't have that much time. You're gonna, it's you got to make a decision quick, and having options really helps. But yeah, absolutely, that offensive line is stellar. But that's the. I don't even know. What's the question here anyway? We lost.
There's no question. We're just talking about how we were talking about their seeding and the fact
how good they. Yeah,
the fact that they're tied for first in the NFC this late in the season. Yeah, and the reason is, I mean, there are lots of reasons. Obviously, everything works together. There are lots of reasons, but we saw once again, they can go beat a solid team, a desperate team, a team with a really good defense on the road. By the way, there were almost no Lions fans there at all. I mean, there were a few. And
really?
That was to be expected, though, right? It was Christmas, and that fan base, they love those Vikings. It was loud. But yeah, the reason they were able to go in and do that is it's because of what they've done up front. And for so long, this fan base they love Johnson, they love Sanders, all that. But what did we used to hear all the time, Carlos? When are we ever going to get built up front? Now, the fans want to see it on both sides of the ball. Then if they ever get there, then they're a Super Bowl contender. If they become as good on the defensive line as they are right now on the offensive line, then they're a Super Bowl, like a legitimate Super Bowl team.
Well, let me ask you. So, let me ask you. Jonah Jackson is a free agent after this year. Do you pay him, or do you let him go and replace him in the draft or something, or free agency?
I mean, maybe you can get lucky in the draft. That's a tough one. I mean, as long as Jared Goff's your quarterback, right? That's the question. If he's your
quarterback next year rather, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, no, for sure. But if you want to ride with him for the next few years and see if you can build the defense and win that way, which you can absolutely win that way, then I think you got to figure out how to keep that line together as much as you can.
You want to pay Jackson? You think you need to pay Jonah Jackson?
He's really good. We saw.
And where do you get the money to pay the defensive line that's going to be so good? You can't just draft everybody.
No, you're right. You're going to have to pay, but you don't need a superstar. You just need somebody to help complement Hutchinson. I mean, maybe it's James Houston. I don't know. Ali McNeil is turning into a really, really good player in the interior of that line. So, maybe you get lucky in Pascal, who's shown a little bit of development this year. But you're right. You're going to have to go find another edge, even if just to cover for injury, right? I mean, look at this year, right? They need another cornerback.
You're going to have to pay money to somebody at those positions. And, the money it's not endless. And they're going to have to extend Jared Goff probably. I don't know if they're going to do it this year. I think Burkett's been making noise about they're going to maybe extend them this year with 2 years left. I don't know. I don't think that would be a smart decision, but
they're going to have to pay St. Brown, right, at some point.
They're going to have to pay a lot of people. St. Brown, they're going to have to pay him. They're going to have to make a decision. I'm not sure when Decker's coming up. That's another question. There's just the money isn't endless. They got a cap. They got a 2 year window, right? They got a 2 year window, right, Carlos? More or less because Laporta and Gibbs are on rookie deals. Hutchinson's on a 2nd-year deal. Some of their really promising, not promising because these guys are producing right now, but good young players. They've got a small window before they have to pay everybody. St. Brown's coming up. Yes, they've got about a 2 year window left.
Yep.
But also, we're going to have to see what happens when they lose Ben Johnson, and that's going to be hard. And also the defense. Let's be honest. I mean, it's Aaron Glenn's an issue. Maybe you fortify that defense even more, and put more resources into it. And by the way, one of the things that I don't know, I wonder is when they didn't upgrade at the trade deadline, they didn't go after, anybody, Chase Young or Montez Sweat or whatever. Maybe they don't plan to keep Aaron Glenn. And it's like, why are we going to put resources into this when we're going to get a new defensive coordinator and they're going to want to maybe do things differently? And we're going to lock ourselves into, a 2-3 year contract with someone they may not want, that's not going to fit their scheme or their style, whatever it might be. I don't know that. I'm just saying that it's just a potential option of it's not just maybe the players. It may also be the leadership. So Aaron Glenn and Dan Campbell are tight. So I think that Aaron Glenn will survive somehow, but we'll see what happens in the playoffs. If they get run over by the Seahawks or the Rams in the first round and, they score 42 points on the Lions and they lose 42-31 or something, then that's going to color maybe some of the decisions they make.
It might be. I mean, it's different for Campbell than it is for us or for the fans, right? It's just a different perspective. I mean, it's hard to get stops when you can't rush the quarterback. It just is. It all starts with that. It's just it's the same as on the offensive line. If you can't block for the backs or protect the quarterback, you're not going anywhere. And maybe if it's Lamar Jackson back there, right? But if you have an elite quarterback, but there's no equivalent defensively. There's no one player behind the defensive line that can change the entire defense like a quarterback can on a mobile elite quarterback can on offense. So they're kind of stuck. Aaron Glenn his defense can't generate pressure unless he blitzes, more or less. Right, against the better offensive lines, against the better offensives, and that's an issue, and that's what they got to figure out. But maybe they can get the right matchup. You're right, the Stafford thing. I'm sure we'll talk about that with the Rams. That's an unsettling. I've already can hear the rumbling a little bit. That's an unsettling thought for a lot of fans. Aaron Glenn might be fine. We'll see what the resources are. Real quickly though, before we get to the Pistons, just. Do they win out? I mean, not that I want to put you on the spot for a prediction, but let's just say this: if they win out and San Francisco loses one of the next two, I think they're playing at Washington, and then they finish with the Rams. If the Lions win out, beat the Cowboys and the Vikings, San Francisco loses one of those, probably not going to lose to Washington. They're the number 1 seed. San Francisco wins out, Dallas wins out, they're the number 2 seed. I mean, if San Francisco wins out and the Lions win out, the Lions are the number 2 seed. If they lose and Philly wins out, then they're probably the number 3 seed. But the idea that they could be looking at 2 home playoff games, that's not, and now beating the Cowboys is huge. I mean, that's hard, rather. But what do you think? First of all, they have a shot because the Cowboys have lost 2 in a row, but they've both been on the road, and they're great at home. They're undefeated at home. They're one of the best, they look like the best team in football when they're at home. That's how good they are. And that's the disparity.
Yeah, I don't like them winning this game just because, they're unbeatable at home almost. And they're also coming off a Monday night loss. It's, I think it was a Monday night loss, right? Did they lose to the Dolphins?
Sunday. They played Sunday night.
Yeah, they're going to be motivated to make up for that. And they know what's right on the line. I mean, they know that the number 2 seed here is up for grabs, and they don't want to lose to the Lions. I don't think the Lions have had a terrible amount of luck in Dallas. So yeah, I don't see them winning out, specifically against the Cowboys. I see them beating, I don't think that the seeding will be locked in no matter what happens this weekend. But if it's a legitimate game in the finale against Minnesota at home, I would predict they beat the Vikings. But to me, it's almost, 2nd seed, 3rd seed. I think it's tough because those two, the potential matchups with the Rams and the Seahawks are kind of the Lions' kryptonite. And but the thing, like, what was it? Was it the team you don't want to lose to the most? Was it Gary Muller or whoever said that?
And that's about Michigan State, Ohio State. Yeah.
And you don't want to, they don't want to lose. They don't want to lose to Matthew Stafford and the Rams. That's what they don't want to do. Is they don't want the old guy, the old quarterback, their old star that, coming in here, and
especially at Ford Field, right?
And at Ford Field, it's just this would be this existential problem for Lions fans. If you lose to the Seahawks, you're going to be upset. We watched them 3 straight times. What the heck, and it's any loss will sting. But I think the Rams one would sting the most. So any seeding that gets you away from a Rams matchup, whether it's the 3rd seed or the 2nd seed, I think the Lions fans would rather, if it's a lower seed, can we avoid the Rams, please? So, and then they lost to the Seahawks, but I think they played them pretty close. So it should be, maybe they haven't, it's hard to beat a team twice, whatever. So yeah, it's going to be tough. They have a chance to win out. I don't think they will. Do you think they will win out?
I think that's a tall task to go beat the Cowboys there, especially with the Cowboys going off two tough road losses. One, they got blitzed in Buffalo, but the Dolphins was the last second field goal. And yeah, they're fighting for position, and that crowd's going to be, they're not going to be very many Lions fans, although there are a fair amount of Michiganders in Texas. So maybe there'll probably be more Lions fans for that game than there were in Minnesota, I would imagine. But no, yeah, I'd be shocked. If not shocked, but I'd be surprised if I think they can hang with Dallas. I think they want to show they're ready to compete at that level, because the Cowboys, as we said, are really, really good at home. But yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you. All right, bud, we got to at least acknowledge that, and by the time y'all are listening to this, the Pistons may well have set history. One more loss, and they set the record for consecutive losses in a season. I mean, how did we get here? What's not that we need to break all this down, Carlos, but just do you have? Let me put it to you this way: it's just as a human being, do you have any empathy for what these players and even the coaches are going through it all, because they become a national story. This isn't just a local story at this point. It's a national story. The ineptitude, the losing.
Yeah, it's I do, because I covered 0-16 for the Lions, and that was more difficult because it was that entire season, and it went on, and the Pistons are not going to go whatever 0-80. I don't think that's going to happen. So, and they're not going to go 0-82. But the Lions season was hard, and I lived it, in real time in the locker room, and you could just see. And that was a little bit, it's apples and oranges, but there were firings in the way and on the way, and things got contentious with the media to some extent. And it's tough. It's tough to see the players go through it, the coaches through it, live through it as the media, that you have to cover them on a day-to-day basis. And it feels hopeless, and it's just exhausting. And, I don't think anybody had any idea that this was going to happen. It just doesn't make sense. And, people want someone's head on the platter. And the other day, right, the chant went up, sell the team.
Yeah.
And Tom Gores didn't have a good answer for that. He met with some reporters after the game and, talking about how the good they're doing in the community and this and that. And, that's not what people want to hear, and he's the owner. He's the king. He can do whatever he wants, and he's not going to sell the team. But what the fans are asking for is change by sell the team. We want something different. We want something to change. And
I think they'd literally like him to sell the team.
Yeah, they'd love him to sell a team, but what they're really getting at is change something here, something as big as you can. Sell the team, or fire the coach, or fire the GM, or whatever. But it's not. And the same thing that happened with the Lions when they were 0-16. There were a lot of calls to sell the team because of the Fords, and that's a little bit different because their ownership went way further back than Gores has, but. It hasn't been a success in Gores, and he doesn't live here and all that stuff. And I can understand the fans' frustration, but it's hard for everybody right now. I just don't see, where you have the hope, and they get a little close against the worst teams, and then they fall, and Monty Williams is up there again, and we did this and that, and but I like how focused we are, and everybody's professional, and they come to work the next day and they work hard and blah blah blah, but it just doesn't work out. Basketball a lot better than me, Shawn. I mean, is there just until Duran comes back? Is that the answer? I mean, what's going to save?
Duran will help a little bit, but there are a couple of things going on here. First of all, yeah, they could get rid of Weaver right now, and it would placate the fan base a little bit. They could probably get rid of Monty Williams, and that might help some. Weaver's the bigger target in terms of the fan base, and it's hard to fire a coach this soon. Although teams do it, and it doesn't seem like he's connecting. But toss that aside, the losing and just forget for a second how they're constructed, because it's problematic, obviously, and a lot of things have just not worked out. But to me, there are two things that are more fascinating than anything else. And what the first thing, just from the fan base's perspective and the organization too, is where do you go? I mean, is Cade Cunningham a guy you can go build around? I mean, he has nights where he looks like it occasionally, but not very many of them. And in the midst of all this losing, and it's partly it's roster construction, but there's just a psychological sort of devastation that comes with each loss. And how do you get out from under that? I mean, and that's the thing. I mean, this team has enough talent to not be 2-27 or whatever it is they are, right? They could at least have won 6 or 7 games. I mean, they're 2-27. I think they're 46 out of they've lost 46 out of their last 50. That's almost unfathomable. I mean, I don't know if it's worse than the 0-16 or not, but yeah. So those are the two things I think about. Where do you go? And just for now, if you're coaching these guys, or if you're playing, if you're one of the players, how do you just get a win, right? How do you summon where do you turn to within yourself to figure out how to get a single win? That's what's sort of unusual about this, right? That's why this becomes such a story. That's why, oddly enough, they've had fans there lately, like a lot of them. We talked about the rubbernecking a little bit, right?
Are you sure they've had a lot? Because it doesn't look like a lot on TV, and they don't.
No, they were almost sold out for the Jazz game. So that was I think that was the last home game. Maybe there's been one other. No, they had a stretch where there was nobody, but then as they got close to this record, they had weirdly an uptick in fans. And people partly, I've been, from what I can gather, some are going to chant, sell the team. Like they're going down as a political statement, I mean, right? Which is unusual.
The tickets are probably reasonable too to buy.
Yeah, they are. They totally are. I mean, I keep hearing, I want to go. And when I was telling people I'm going to go to the game Tuesday night, and they're playing the Brooklyn Nets, and I had people, oh God, I wish I could go. I mean, what What is going on with this psychology here, Carlos? I mean, I guess it's why they become a bit of a national story, right? I mean, and there have been stories about them outside of the sports, like CNN, and I want to say the New York Times.
Noticed that. Okay.
Yeah, no, there've been a little bit. Just like it always happens when there's a record, historic record, especially when it's an ignominious record. You know, I think there's some degree of built-in empathy for when human beings are. And look, it's sports. We're not equating
it's not empathy. It's rubbernecking. It's looking at
I think it's both. I think there's rubbernecking, and I think it's like, oh, those poor fellas. I think there's both. I think it's both.
It was the same thing with 0-16 as when it got closer to the end. People were coming to come to the funeral. You know, I mean, they just wanted to see how is this happening, why, and
yeah, no, for sure. It's really something. We'll have time to talk more about. I mean, obviously, Gores has got to make changes. I mean, what are you even going to write at this point, right? I mean, obviously, he's got to make changes. But how many times can you say that?
Yeah, I mean, the weird thing is when he talks to the reporters, he talks about how they have amazing young players, right? And they have a lot of cap space coming. And it's like, okay, well, who's going to get that cap space? Is it going to be Weaver? Is it going to be somebody else? And if you have amazing young players, then you should have been able to win a game in the last 26, right? I mean, you can't. I don't know if you can say amazing. But he's talking about the future, and he says like, yeah, nobody can really see the future very well. But we got cap space, we got young guys, we got he's selling you on a promise that something's going to happen, and it hasn't happened. And what's weird about this season, right, is that they just hired a different coach. They spent a lot of money in Monty Williams.
They did.
Like with the Lions, it was the end of Marinelli's, whatever it was, his third year, I think, on the team. It was clearly not working. And Matt Millen had been there far too long, maybe kind of in line with Troy Weaver a little bit, but someone had to go. And they fired Millen during the season, and they didn't fire Marinelli. They just like, we're going to ride this out. And it was kind of like, we're going to get the number 1 overall pick, and that's what gets you Matthew Stafford. But I don't think because the lottery system that doesn't necessarily equate. I don't think they're trying to tank. So
no, they're trying to win. I mean, I think that's what's so frustrating to the fan base too, right? They're trying to win, and they can't. They can't win a single game. And I haven't heard this talked about a lot. Maybe some of the beat guys. But here's what is really baffling, Carlos. And you can say, okay, fine, the roster construction, whatever. And I do believe Durant will make a difference. Will he make him start winning? No. But of course he's going to make a difference. I mean, in terms of the competitive level. They looked better the first 3 games of the year. They looked better than they did a year ago. They had an intensity about them. They were turning the ball over too much. And part of that's the youth, but they looked like an actual basketball team. And they start off 2-1. Okay, fine. They beat Charlotte, but Charlotte's okay. And they beat them they're not very good, but that was a road win. They stayed with Miami, and then they beat the Bulls team. The Bulls team here, they looked, and then they had that bad loss to Portland. They blew a fourth quarter lead. They were hanging their heads, and the schedule got tough, and that was it. I mean, that was it. I've never seen anything like it. It's just, it's not like they look like this to start the season for those first few games. And Monty Williams for a while kept saying, I know it's in him because I saw it. Well, he was right. Well, he hadn't seen it now. And I mean, you can't really say that now, 30 games in or whatever. But that's what's amazing to me. Is it that fragile? It's just baffling. Now, you could point to they haven't been the same. Durant got hurt that 4th game. He actually got hurt the 3rd game and then sat the 4th game. And he's not been the same since. Is it really that simple? I don't think it's that simple. Yeah, he looked great this first couple of games. He looked like he'd taken a big step, and then he got hurt and he hasn't been the same since. But is that it? I don't know. Probably not. I don't know, dude. When you're 2-27, what are you going to say?
Yeah, there's something that has to change, and it's whether it's a change, an organizational change, or you add a player, or you change some roles or whatever. You got to try something. I don't think there's anything drastic. And they have, Bogdanovich came back, and that hasn't helped.
And he's not been that good either, weirdly. Like last year, he played probably the best basketball of his life. He's not been anywhere near that player this year. Is it him? Maybe. Is it him getting older? Probably a little bit. Is it also him joining a team that just had no life and he's gotten sucked into that vortex? I would say probably a bit of that too. It's just nothing. There's nothing. It's really something. Anyway, yeah, no, the GM's the GM's got to go, I think. I mean, whether that's fair to Weaver or not, whether he's had other people telling him to make decisions he didn't want to, that's Gore's fault.
Right.
If Weaver goes, whoever comes in to do, and has a vision, they got to stay out of the way and let him sink or swim. And you're right, Gores isn't selling the team. Why should he sell the team?
Right.
You can blame Gores all you want. The record speaks for itself, but we've talked about this before, Carlos. This is the last point I'll make. He's hired guys that have been good before they got here. It's not like he's just, yeah.
Gores makes them bad, is what you're saying. He turns his.
I mean, it's not like people get frustrated with him, and I understand it, but he's brought in guys that have good resumes, and it just doesn't work.
Dwayne Casey,
and Stan Van Gundy was a really good coach, and finals NBA. He's been in the NBA finals. I mean, right?
He's coach spending money. So it's like he's not spending money on these coaches and players,
exactly. So it's just not. It's just one of those things. It's just a terrible run of bad luck, and the front office is a different question. Anyway, all right. Let's take one more quick break and come back with your favorite thing. I want to hear about your pulling your leaf out of your table.
Sounds good.
All right. We'll be right back with more Free Press Sports with Carlos and Shawn. Welcome back to Free Press Sports with Carlos and Shawn. It's that time of the show. It's Carlos's favorite thing. I wait for it every week. I wait for it the whole show. I need to shut the heck up so I can just get to his favorite thing. Nobody wants to hear about the Lions or the Pistons. It's all about Carlos. What you got?
Well, my favorite thing is this week I'm hosting my family in town from North Carolina. My sister, her husband, 2 kids, all adult, college age, and my mom. She lives with my sister. So they all came up and they come in on Christmas Day and they come home and we're doing a little gift exchange. My mom's a knitter. So she knit me this little crocheted hat for me. She always thinks and she does, when she does visit in the winter, it is cold, but she thinks it's perpetually cold in Michigan. So I always get a bunch of scarves and things, but she knit me a hat. And Shawn, I don't know exactly how to describe this hat other than I can imagine it's something that the Cossacks might have worn in Russia. And so I know it's going to look ridiculous on me. And so my sister is begging me to put it on. So I put it on and immediately she needs to start taking a picture of me. But it looks so ridiculous on me that she just bends over. My sister Cynthia just bends over laughing on the floor. She's on the floor, like in the fetal position because she can barely breathe. That's how hard she's laughing about how this looks on me. And I don't get to see my sister that much, but I haven't seen her laugh that hard, maybe in her whole life. So it was really fun. Of course, I walked around the house with the hat and everybody else got a good laugh out of it too. But my sister really enjoyed it. And I was like, this is the best Christmas present. One of the best I've had because of how much joy it brought everybody in the house. But specifically my sister. So, and it was, as it is, traveling on in the holidays with family is a lot to do. So I appreciate her and the family coming up. And I'm glad I was able to bring that level of joy in her life for a few minutes. So hopefully my mom can keep sending me those kind of hats and she can keep enjoying that in the future. But it was,
That's great.
I'll send you a picture of the hat.
Please do. Did she make it extra large?
I have a big head, so in more ways, literally and figuratively. So
you don't have a big head, literally.
I have a size 7 and a little more than 3/4, or 7. No, I'm sorry, 7 1/4 to 7 1/2, somewhere depending on whoever makes the hat, whatever. But 7 1/4, I guess that's kind of larger. How big is your head, Shawn? I'm guessing 8.
8. I don't know. I have a giant.
You don't wear hats.
I have a giant. I do. I wear a stocking cap a lot of the winter. I have a giant forehead. My wife used to call me Cro-Magnon Man because of the forehead. I don't. Hey, so it's all right. My favorite thing. I don't know where to start, Carlos. I'll just keep it simple. My brother came over with his family, his wife Sandra, and his two kids, my niece and nephew Mallory and Matthew, and it was great. They have been over here in 7 years. I want to say we haven't been together on Christmas in 7 years. My mother died about 8 years ago in October, and we were together that first Christmas, and it was, as you can imagine, pretty blue, and it was a little too painful for him, and so his family, they decided to start leaving town for Christmas. They would go to Florida or go someplace warm, and just to do something completely different, because my mom loved Christmas and was just such a big Christmas person. She traveled a lot for work. She was all over the world for a lot of her life, and she got into the habit when she was younger of collecting little trinkets, little presents. She would do that all year round, and then so you get to Christmas and you'd have these little things from, she wasn't extravagant or anything, but just thoughtful, and she'd fill her closet up for 12 months of the year, and it just, anyway. So it was hard, and like it is for anybody when they lose a parent or any loved one, and then you come to that holiday, and so my brother just couldn't bear it. And that's totally understandable. Well, he called me up a month ago and said, hey, it's time we were together on Christmas. It's been too long. When I was like, amen, it has been. So that was easily my favorite thing, was being back together with him on Christmas. It was great. What else was great? Real quickly, just Angelo's closing. I just want to mention that. Maybe I'll talk about that in another show and what that was like. But just their last day was Saturday. They had a big party afterwards. I stayed only for a little bit because I had to get to Minneapolis. But the Ann Arbor Public Library was doing a documentary of their final day for their archives, which was really cool. And they wanted to talk to me, and because I used to work there, and so the owner and I sat for a second to talk to him, and he told the folks behind the camera that he taught me how to cook, he taught me how to write, he put me through school, and he got me a job at the Detroit Free Press, which was, of course, he was having fun and exaggerating, but it was just, maybe I'll talk about that, get some thoughts on that. But I just wanted to acknowledge real quickly that it's not my favorite thing that they're closing, but that Angelo's had this amazing run, and the owner and all the stuff they did for so many people over the years. So in any case, that was pretty special too.
It will be missed. Angelo's will be missed. And yeah, my family, my sister and brother-in-law went to Michigan. That's where they met in grad school. And he's actually going back there to meet a friend, former student. And I told him, unfortunately, you can't go to Angelo's. He's like, yeah, we heard about that. It's going to be sad. They'd go there every once in a while. And they took me there for the first time 30 years ago now. So yes, thank you, Angelo's, for serving the community so well for so long. You will be missed.
Yeah, and getting a lot of students through for sure. But in any case, all right, we got to get you out of here. You got to go see your people in Allen Park. And I don't want you to get back to your vacation because you got family in town, man.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Are you off through New Year's other than you're going to pop up for a sec for the Cowboys Lions?
Yes. Yeah. I'll be writing something off the Cowboys Lions from the TV. And yeah, got a few days off, so enjoying it. Hopefully you do too. Do you have time?
You got some time off after that too? You must, because otherwise you were going to come to Dallas, right? But family's first.
Yeah.
Okay, good. All right. We want to thank can we run down that list? Let's just thank Robin and get the heck out.
Yeah, our producer Robin Chan. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to Robin Chan. He's been doing obviously great job and keeps this whole thing going and on track and sounding good, better than we should sound. And then executive producers, Kirk and Crawford and Jeanette Delgado, who support the show and do a lot for the show and promoting it and keeping us in line, because someone needs to, Shawn. And Nicole Avery Nichols, who obviously is the editor of the Free Press and makes the whole thing work. But especially Shawn, who do we have to thank for this whole year of putting up with us?
You, the listener. And by the way, I wanted to not shout out, but just acknowledge real quick. I heard from a couple of people that were very disappointed there wasn't a video or recording after the game, the Lions on Sunday, because they won the division for the first time and they were looking to celebrate. And I don't blame them. I know, I totally understand that. I apologize for that. We were all trying to get back to our families. It was Christmas Eve. I know that's not an excuse. We're paid to do a job. we just couldn't. There just wasn't time and get to the airport and get home for Christmas. So please forgive us for that. But thank you for reaching out, and thanks for letting us know that you were disappointed. At least a couple of people care, Carl. So yeah, we absolutely need to thank the listeners more than anybody else.
Don't worry, because the next time they win their division next year, we'll do it next year. Yeah. They'll wrap it up much earlier.
There's only one first time though, right? And we blew it. I mean, you can only win once after 30 years and have that feeling. Anyway, yeah, we'll see. Hey, it's been longer since they won a playoff game. We'll definitely be there after a playoff game, right? If they win or lose.
Are we doing it this Saturday? You think for the Cowboys?
Yeah, we can sure try.
You're not leaving early. You don't have an early flight.
No. Okay. I don't need to. Yeah, we can sure try. So, all right. Yeah, you can obviously find us wherever you find your favorite podcast. Rate us, subscribe, please, whatever service it is you use. Do I really need to list them? Just Spotify and Apple? Yeah, what the heck? We just did. All right, until probably Saturday night when the Lions play at Dallas. For sure next week we'll be back with what do we call the show? Free Press Sports with Carlos and Shawn. Thanks for joining us.